And we are live. How's everybody doing tonight? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and you're watching ABL Live. Thank y'all for joining me tonight. You could be anywhere in the whole wide world, which right here with me, and I most certainly appreciate you for that. This episode's gonna be a little bit different because we do have the debate coming up. That'll be at right around 9 o'clock. So I guess for the first hour or so, I'll do the show as normal. Talk about things that are going on, and there's quite a few things that are happening. I can get through the list. We got to talk about this whole thing with Dwayne Wade's son. And a lot of these guys are coming out and saying, nope, this is not going to be really how we're going to go about it. We got to talk about Trump pardoning certain people and people being upset about it. Your Chelsea Handler and other people in the mainstream media, Bernie Sanders. We got to talk about that Nevada rally that Bernie had, which was a total dumpster fire. We got to talk about a few things on the show before we get to the debate. Again, the debate will be at 9 p.m. If I'm not mistaken, if I'm wrong, you guys let me know in the comments. Once the debate happens, we'll switch to the debate. But for right now, we're just going to talk about a few things that are going on. It won't be any calls tonight, most likely. It'll just be me talking and then the debate. But of course, I'll be talking to you guys in the comments. I'll read you guys' comments, of course, all throughout. And of course, in the very beginning. But there's a whole lot happening. I mean, it's hard to keep tabs on everything that's going on. But we're going to do our best to talk about everything and more. And once again, I thank y'all for being here on tonight's episode of ABL Live. And that is my cue to go ahead and get on the camera. Thank y'all yet again. Please like the video, share the video if you enjoy the content, if you want more of it. Tell a friend about the show. And I appreciate you guys for joining. Again, the debate will be at 9 p.m. Eastern on NBC. We'll cover it here live as it's going on. But for right now, I'll just be talking about a few different things. Yes, 9 p.m. Eastern time, 100%. Is there an echo happening? It shouldn't be an echo. It might just be my microphone. It just kind of sounds like that because of just the way it is. It's a little bit more full. It shouldn't be an echo at all, though. All right. So thank you all for joining. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, no echo. All righty. Let me see. Now, it's a whole lot going on. But tonight's going to be interesting because you have Mike Bloomberg on stage for the first time. Now, Mike Bloomberg will get hit with a barrage of questions if they are being honest. If they're not being honest, then they wouldn't ask him anything. You know, it's funny. The things that Bloomberg has said, if Trump were to say anything close to that, then, oh, you're racist and you hate black people, you hate brown people, this, that, and the third. It's very interesting how they, how they do these things. Very interesting indeed. I want to see their reaction when Bloomberg answers some of these questions about stop and frisk and, some things he has allegedly said, talking about, just go hire a black compare wherever to be made, things like that. I want to see if those questions get asked and what the answers are going to be and what the reaction will be from the mainstream media as well as just regular normies out there. Because one thing that really surprised me is the fact that Bloomberg is number 2 in a recent poll, right behind Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden, I'm not really sure where he is as far as polling numbers are concerned, but he might as well just not even be in the race anymore. It's pretty much a wrap for him. I don't think he has a chance of succeeding at all. I mean, look at the way this guy's performing just physically out there on the stage, looking like he's about to collapse at any moment. Okay. And all these guys are old. Bloomberg 78, Bernie is 78, Biden is 77. It's like, can we get somebody that is below the age of 60, maybe? Nothing against anybody that's up there in age, but I feel like if you are almost 80 years old, becoming the president shouldn't really be your concern. That's just my humble opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just how I feel. Especially when you're Bernie Sanders, you're 78 and you just had a heart attack. I mean, he's lucky to even be living, quite honestly, to be that age and have a heart attack. It's hard to survive that. What are the odds of you living after a heart attack at age 78? So I think that a lot of these guys shouldn't even be in the race, and I don't think that who is that Bloomberg should really be there. But it'd be very interesting to see how he does coming up here. People are talking about, oh, it's because Bloomberg has money. He has money. He's buying the election. Well, money can't necessarily win you an election or get you higher standings than others, because Hillary Clinton had all the money in the world, right? She barely beat Bernie in the primary in 2016. And we know there was some funny business going on right there with that particular situation that money couldn't necessarily produce. You had to have insiders making sure things went a certain way to get Hillary Clinton a nomination. Bernie was screwed out of the nomination. Okay, so the money can't necessarily get you the support of the people. And let's not forget, during the general election, Hillary Clinton had double the money that Trump had. Trump had about 725 million. Hillary had about 1.3 billion. So nearly double the money, but yet she still lost. Some are going to say, oh, well, she won. No, she didn't win. You got to win in the electoral college, because if you just focus your energy on certain places like California, New York, Illinois, you'll be able to get a lot of votes, and that's fine. But you got to be able to win all over the United States, appeal to all people, not just certain kinds of people. Wouldn't that be a thing that the Democrats are really interested in having? A fair system that does not discriminate, that does not rely on certain people in certain places being the determining factor. You can look at the entire country. You know, that is the main thing we're trying to do here. So she did not win. She lost. She got stomped down when you're talking about the general election in the actual primary. But we're going to see how these things unfold. I'm really, really looking forward to it. 1,000%. And again, if you're just now coming into the stream, the debate will be at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So we got about 50 something minutes, 53 minutes ago. So y'all just hang tight until then. But I think what we'll do is right around 8:45 p.m. Eastern, we'll just go ahead and switch to the pre-show coverage, and then we go ahead and just ease on into the debate right now. All right. David says, Tom looks like a JCPenney mannequin. Hilarious. ABL wearing red, white, and blue. Coincidence? There's a coincidence. But, you know, being patriotic, hey, it just kind of fits. It just fits 100%. Oh, and yes, Juicy Smouye, who says, Crazy Bernie is a spineless fraud. He'll be stumping for Mini Mike in a few months. Yes, he is spineless, because we saw what happened in 2016 when he got beat out of the nomination by Hillary. And I mean literally beat, not beat as in you did it in a righteous way, in an ethical way. He was beat as in a street form, like getting robbed. He got robbed in 2016. He probably should have been the candidate, but he was not the candidate. It was Hillary. He saw that happen in 2016 and then still went out there and stumped for her. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty interesting. And then you see these rallies that he has. I'm seeing the same thing happen over again. Remember back in 2015, it was the same thing going on when these ladies from Black Lives, LIES Matter, came on there and commandeered the mic. Let her speak. Remember that? That was in 2015, believe it or not, almost 5 years ago. Here we go again, 2020. You have these ladies commandeering the mic, talking about, I'm your biggest fan, is that and the third, but you got to stop propping up the dairy industry. Then they came on stage with their shirts off and the stuff out, pouring fake blood and all types of liquid on themselves. It's like, number one, where's your security, sir? You didn't learn from the first time you ran that you're going to have nut jobs out there that are going to want to rush the stage. Where's the security at? If you have security, they must be on their phone. They must be playing Fortnite or something. Like, they're not paying any kind of attention. Your security, it gets an E plus, a E minus rating. If your security was outside of a Chuck E. Cheese, I would not feel safe at all. You understand what I'm saying? These guys are just not really worth their salt at all. But you see what he did. It's like, okay, take the mic, do whatever you want. He struggled briefly with the mic and just let it go. Okay, this guy is not the kind of person that I look at and see confidence or strength or anything that would be a leader of a nation. None, but no kind of fortitude whatsoever from Bernie Sanders do I see. So it'd be interesting to see how this whole debate goes, because Bernie should be attacking. Really, since Bernie is the main guy out there and he has a guy like nipping at his heels and Bloomberg, he should go on the direct attack. It's like what Trump did in 2016, attacking people that are like close to him. You got to do that. It's not even nothing personal. You guys can hang out afterwards, do whatever. But when you're talking about trying to win and trying to become the nominee, you got to be attacking. If you're not going to be attacking, then it's like, what are we really doing? We're just playing games. We're just kind of playing footsie with each other. We're not really trying to win an election. We're not trying to get a nomination. So if you don't have that dog in you, if you don't have that fight in you right now, why would you have it when you're the president? It doesn't make much sense. But really what it boils down to is the fact that none of these guys have a chance. Nobody has a chance at all. But I think that the election could shape the Democratic Party for a while, even when they lose, because in the months leading up to November and then the months thereafter, whoever is going to be the nominee is going to attract a lot of supporters from the left. If it's Bernie, he's going to get the squad, all of them. It's going to kind of solidify them as like being people that you know about. By being attached to the guy that's running, who ran last time with a lot of supporters, they'll be attached to him. Therefore, there'll be kind of a spotlight on that particular wing of the party, which is taking over right now. It's some resistance from the Pelosi's of the world and the Chuck Schumers of the world, but it's not really going very well as far as trying to resist the change. You know, it's like floodwaters coming in. You built in sandbags and barriers and levees and ditches, but the water just keeps on coming. And at a certain point, it's going to overtake you totally, and you're just going to be a big lake. It used to be a fertile plain where you could just grow tomatoes and squash and whatnot. Now you're just a lake. All of that's underwater. And that is the goal of the far left, to make the Democratic Party be just part of the swamp of their making. Okay. So I want to see what happens, who's going to be the nominee, because it's going to be interesting how it shapes the Democratic Party for a very long time, or at least for the very near future. Charles Sumner Jr. says, remember back in 2008 when McCain refused to attack Obama at all and turned his anger against his own supporters? Yeah, I remember that. Oh, he's on the Muslim, this, that, and the third. I remember that. And it's like, hey, if that's what you're going to do, if that's your attitude, you're not going to succeed here, sir. You got to be able to go on the attack. And don't attack your own people. That's just going to make you lose votes anymore. I mean, more than what you're doing. Who knows? McCain could have been the mole back then working for the Democrats, throwing the election, you know, trying to lose so Obama would win. Who knows? I can't even really call it. Vipe D says, your thoughts on the possibility of Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton entering the race? Great work, ABL. Thank you for that, man. Definitely appreciate for your donation. Now, as far as Michelle or Hillary, I thought that one of them would enter the race. I thought that for sure. I thought that a good ticket for the Democrats would be Michelle Obama and Oprah. But I think we're way too far along. It's almost March, so it's not enough time. You know, they're picking a nominee like within a few days. Super Tuesday, we're at March 19th, right? Super Tuesday is in less than 2 weeks, talking about 13 days. So it's not enough time for that. They're picking a nominee in 2 weeks, basically. Okay, you got the primary coming up. Was it a primary or a caucus in Nevada? Whatever it is, in Nevada coming up Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have another one coming up in South Carolina next Saturday, the 29th. Super Tuesday is on the 3rd. So in less than 2 weeks, they're going to pick. So I don't think anybody's going to enter the race right now. I thought Hillary might enter the race. And there was a rumor about her being the VP pick for Bloomberg, but she came out and said that she just want to do that. Like, she was asked about being the VP pick for Bloomberg. She said, oh, no, not going to do that. And I don't think Michelle Obama would be a vice president to anybody that's running right now. She will only be a VP to a person like Oprah. And like I said, we're a little bit too far into the season right now for there to be any kind of drastic changes. I think the drastic change would be the fact that Bloomberg is doing so well in the polls, which is interesting considering how the left talks about Trump being this big bad racist. But I'll move on. Thank you to Heidi, who says, I go to OU. Thanks for covering the madness. Hey, it's all good. I'm sorry you had to go there and experience that kind of madness over there at Ohio University. But it's crazy. And the crazier part is that the police it might be the campus police or the local police talking about, oh, it wasn't really a riot. They were just exercising their free speech. It's like, well, wait a minute. Free speech does not mean I get to throw hot coffee on you. I get to beat on your car, throw water on you, scream at you, screech at you, get in your face, threaten you. I mean, is that free speech? Because at a certain point, I can defend myself. If you're in my face screeching and making me feel like I'm threatened, then maybe I might hit you with a right hook. Okay, I mean, I can do that, and it's self-defense. So you can't just do whatever you want under the guise of free speech. If I throw something on you, that's called assault. You know, hot coffee, that's assault. And I can assault you back. So, yeah, it's crazy how people are trying to like downplay and dismiss it, probably because they're conservative. But thank you for your recognition and your donation. I definitely appreciate you. You're going to miss Tom Steyer, guy? Tom Steyer and his tie. Them ties were a mess. Or that one tie he had. Maybe probably a story behind that Argyle plaid looking tie he has. I'd like to hear it because I'm kind of interested, kind of concerned about it, quite frankly. All right. But there's a whole lot of stuff going on. I'm just prepared for the debate. Like I said, I want to see Mike Bloomberg come out and defend his record. And I want some questions to be asked. If questions are not being asked about his record and some prior things he said, then you know more than what you already know that it's a big sham. It's a game they're playing and they're not being serious at all. Not in the least bit. Not whatsoever. Okay. Let me see. Oh, and Joe Biden said in an interview, I think it was with Jorge Ramos on a Facebook show, that Obama and him kept kids in cages to keep them safe. Okay, because Jorge Ramos said, hey, wait a minute. We're talking about Donald Trump and the kids in cages of family separation. And mind you, Jorge Ramos is a strong stomp down lefty, a big time never Trumper, got kicked out of an event where Trump was speaking for being so obnoxious and rude and combative. Anyway, he asked Joe Biden about the Obama administration and their record of putting kids in quote unquote cages and family separation. Biden was like, well, we did it to keep them safe. They're coming unaccompanied. They got to have somewhere to be. Well, it's like, wait a minute. How is it okay for you to keep kids in quote unquote cages, but it's not okay for Barack Obama to do it? I mean, for Trump to do it. It doesn't make any sense. It should be the same thing. Trump is using the same quote unquote cages that Obama's administration built and used. Obama was also the deporter in chief. That was what he was called during his administration, the deporter in chief. He deported a lot of people, some of the most in history. Now, granted, he also imported the most, but he was a big time deporter and detainer at the southern border. So what are we talking about here? How is it wrong or racist or inhumane or evil when Trump does a thing, but it's okay and it's fine, it's compassionate when Obama does it or when Biden does it? So hopefully, like I said, if the moderators, quote unquote, at this debate on NBC are being honest, they got to ask them about that. It's like, wait a minute. I saw this interview. You were talking about the kids in the cages and how you kept them there for your safety. Do you want to elaborate on that, sir? So I definitely want to see the reaction to that. And really what I want to see is Joe Biden drop out. Like, politics aside, the guy does not look well. That's just a fact. Anybody with a pair of eyes can see it. This guy's on his last leg. He does not look well at all. He don't really know where he is. He has flashes of sharpness, but if you looked at him 20 years ago, different person, 100%, totally. It ain't the same guy. He's nowhere near as sharp. He's confused all the time. The look in his eyes is not even really there. It's like a guy that used to be somebody that's trying to figure out who they were. It's sad. So he should go ahead and drop out. And I think this debate, he'll perform very poorly, 100%. And I think he'll stick around even if he does badly in this debate and also on the caucus or primary, whatever it is on Saturday in Vegas or Nevada. He'll stick around till South Carolina, which is next weekend, next Saturday, the 29th, because he's polling very well in South Carolina. Now, one thing I will say is that he has dropped in the polls in South Carolina since, I think, December even, and we're just in February. 2 months ago, maybe like 6 weeks ago, he was doing much better, like at 44% in South Carolina. I think he's like 30%. That's a big drop. And I'm not really sure who's number two behind him. Possibly, I don't know, Bernie maybe in South Carolina. The thing about South Carolina is that it has a very big black voter block for the Democrats. They said that 2/3 of the Democratic primary vote is African American. 2/3 of the Democratic primary vote in South Carolina. That's a very big margin. That'll help him look good. But if you're coming in number 4, number 5, number 4, and then number 1 or number 2 barely, that's not really enough to gain you the nomination. Delegates are being already distributed. You can already pretty much call certain. You could pretty much call certain places for certain people, and those delegates are going to go for that individual. Okay, so if Bernie getting all the delegates and you're not getting delegates, then you're not going to get a nomination. As simple as that. I don't think the Democratic Party would even want to screw Bernie out of it to give it to Joe Biden. They probably rather have a Bernie in there than Joe Biden because Biden ain't going to survive. Biden is not really mentally strong. He'll make the Democratic Party look worse than what they already look. So I think that the delegates will most certainly go for a Bernie. Bloomberg, I don't know. He could take it. But like I said, I want to see them ask questions and be honest about Bloomberg's record and his prior statements, either what were made on television or on audio tape or on a speech or alleged statements. But we'll see. Where's Hunter? Who knows? Hunter is somewhere hiding out, not trying to be seen by the media, not trying to be seen by any kind of camera. If anybody has a cell phone camera or something, he wants to avoid that, duck that, because he wants all the whole thing with Ukraine and China and the corruption and the drunk driving and the baby mama in Arkansas. He wants all that to go away and to blow over. But since his dad is running for president, it can't go away. It's always going to be mentioned. It could be forgotten about at a certain point in time, but not right now, while his dad is still out there in the public eye. If his dad was to go away, maybe some of the heat on Hunter's back goes away, but it's going to be there for quite a while. And I want to see if this guy gets questioned or investigated into what was going on with Ukraine. If he doesn't, then you know that it's all BS. Same thing with Joe. If Joe does not really get questioned or investigated about his role in Ukraine and China and some of that funny money, then you know that what I'm saying is correct. It's all BS. It's a dog and pony show. Simple as that. Somebody says he's in mechanic type says he's in the cave. Hey, he could be in the cave. Who knows? Hey, but if you just now come into the stream, we'll start the debate coverage in about a half hour, give or take a little bit. The debate officially starts at 9 p.m. Eastern. So right now I'm just talking to the people about a few things that are going on right now in the news. If you like what you're hearing so far, please hit that like button, share the video as well. I definitely appreciate you for that. And if you're not subscribed, please do so. Click the subscribe button and click the bell as well so you get notified when I go live and or post a new video. Thank y'all for being here most certainly. Rob M says, Hunter just wants a stripper in his crack pipe. That's, hey, how much is that? Like, that's not too much to ask. Just give me my stripper and my crack pipe. Let me get high and have some fun. That's pretty much what Hunter Biden is right now. 100%. All right. I'm a straight edge. Yes, I am straight edge. 100%. I don't drink, don't smoke, do nothing. I'm a straight edge guy. I don't do none of that silly stuff. If what you mean by straight edge, am I, a teetotaler, no drinking, no smoking? Yes, you're correct. Now, speaking about being a teetotaler, this is kind of an awkward segue, but talk about this whole transgender phenomenon that's happening right now. Shout out to the rapper who goes by the name Boosie for just being really real, really authentic when he was talking about the situation. Dwayne Wade has a son. If you don't know who that is, he's a former NBA player, played with LeBron James, won a championship with Shaq, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2007, 2008. A very well-known guy, Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. His son is 12 years old. He was born as Zion Wade. He has changed his name to Zaya. Maybe not legally changed, but he wants to be known as Zaya, and he wants his pronouns to be she, her. This boy is 12 years old. Now, I said it in the video a while ago. I was like, look, if you want to be transgender as an adult, that's fine. You can identify as whatever you want. You can identify as a little teapot, short and stout. That's fine. That's your business as an adult. You can do that. But as a child, as a 12-year-old, that's not appropriate. That's not right. And that was my really only argument. Okay, if he's gay, he could be gay. I'm not in favor of that. But don't say, all right, you're going to be trans now, because with that comes some irreversible things. Maybe he doesn't have surgery, but he may kind of go down the road of just falling into this lifestyle and becoming a girl in his mind. And then when he gets to be older, once puberty kicks in and stuff like that, he may regret it. But now it's kind of complicated, and it can really do some damage to him mentally, even if not physically from actual surgery that he has not had yet. You understand? Anyway, Boosie came out and said what I said, but in much more colorful fashion. Okay, I did a video about it if you want to check it out. But I want to see what the reaction is going to be to Boosie. What you going to do? Try to cancel him? He doesn't care about that. You're talking about these street guys, these rappers. They don't care at all. So what are you going to do when a bunch of guys like that come out? The rapper Young Thug came out and said, God don't make mistakes. What are you going to do? You had a lot of different things going on. You got black guy, street dude, rapper, talking about religion. How can you really combat that if you're on the left? Because now you got to fight a lot of different battles at once. You got to fight the religious battle. You got to fight the race battle. You got to fight the poverty battle, because you can say, oh, Young Thug, he's black, he's poor, comes from the ghetto, this, that, and the third. He should be protected. He should be loved. He should be cared for. He's not, he's a victim, all this, that, and the third. But then when he says a thing you don't like, all of a sudden it goes out the window. He's no longer a victim. He's no longer black. He's no longer poor. All of that just goes out the window. So we know that if you're able to just strip all those labels from him that you use to protect him, normally to attack him, then we know that the labels aren't true. If there's a label to be put on someone, the label should stay there regardless of what the situation is. I'm not saying you should have the label, but if you're going to give him the label, it can't just be removed whenever you feel like it. That lets me further know that this whole thing is BS. All these labels, all this, pandering for people, trying to, say, oh, you're poor, it's not your fault. It's all BS. They'll say that on the left when they want to get something from you, when they're trying to prop you up as a tool in their particular camp. But when you go against the grain, all of a sudden now you persona non grata. They don't want to do with you at all. There's no more protection. There's no more nothing. But see, things like this are happening, and it's going to reveal the Democrats for who they are. It'll reveal the left for who they are. And I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it as I see it every day. I'm seeing it every day on Twitter, especially. It's ground zero for that. Ground zero. A lot of these blue check liberals every day are screaming on black folks for not doing what they want them to do. It's like, wow, what happened to this? You used to be the black guy whisperer. Now you're the black guy screecher. What is going on? The kerfuffle at OU, at Ohio University, more of the same. You got my man Joe Patrick out there, and shout out to Joe Patrick. He's out there with Caitlin Bennett. They're asking basic questions. He's getting his truck, vandalized. They're throwing water on him. They threw coffee on Caitlin. So all of this, oh, you're marginalized people. You're part of a victimhood class. You're a black guy. It's not your fault. That's no longer the case anymore. Now it's, okay, I'm going to throw a rock at your truck. I'm trying to break your window. I'm trying to fight you because you're black and you don't have the narrative I want you to have. You're not doing what I want you to do, therefore I must hurt you, therefore I must attack you. But on my side, I say, hey, I'm not trying to hurt you or attack you. Let's talk. Let's have a civil conversation, which is why on the right, we are attracting people and they're not on the left. On the left, they're hemorrhaging people because they've become violent. They've become non-tolerant. We are the big tent over here on the right. Now, they are not. And if you got a guy like Bernie in there trying to become the president, he'll steer the party further and further to the left to the point where they'll have a lemonade stand for their tent. And we'll have a giant, like the Sydney Opera House. You understand what I'm saying? Compared to their little lemonade stand. But hey, I'm not complaining at all. I love it. I like the fact that they're imploding over there on the left. Maybe they'll tighten up and get it together and reform themselves and bring some balance back to the country. But for right now, I mean, we're going to be the balance over here on the right. And maybe from our side will be birth a new system. Their side may be pretty much done. They're going to get so woke, they're going to go out of existence. They're going to become extinct over there. Go woke, go broke, go woke, go extinct. How about that? That's pretty much what's going on. Yes, they're using violence and intimidation. That's pretty much what they're doing right now. And it's not working very well. All that it does is just galvanize small groups of people, but it alienates more than it galvanizes. So that's not a very good method to use if you're trying to get people to support whatever your cause is. Not at all. But like I said, I'm not complaining about it. I'm with it 1,000%. All right. And, shout out to Chelsea Handler for being mad about the pardons. They'll probably talk about the pardons tonight as well on a debate. And if you're just not coming in, the debate will be at 9 p.m. I guess at about 8:45 Eastern, which is in about 15 minutes, we'll get to the early coverage and then we'll get into the main debate. But I'll move on. Chelsea Handler was talking about the pardons and the clemency grantings that Trump gave out. I think that was yesterday or today. And he was saying, look at the people that are being pardoned or granted clemency and see what color they are. It's like, well, what are you trying to apply here, ma'am? Because if you zoom out and look at who Trump has freed from the penitentiary in general with the things that he's actually done, things that he's put on the books, 91% of them are black. 91%. Okay, that's a fact. That comes from a nonpartisan institute. That's not even a Trump number. That comes from a nonpartisan group. So if 91% of those that Trump has freed through his actual things he's put on the books are black, then what are you talking about when you say look at the color? I mean, are you upset because they're black? Are you racist? What's going on? What she's thinking about is the fact that Rod Blagojevich got granted clemency, not a pardon, clemency, which means that his sentence got reduced to what he's already served, 8 out of 14 years. He did not get granted a pardon, which means that your sentence is wiped away and you have no record. Like, let's say you went to jail, you're a felon. If you're granted a pardon, you're no longer a felon. So you have your right to vote and your guns and everything else back. He doesn't have that. Blagojevich, that is. But anyway, she's looking at him and a couple other white guys that CNN wants to show at the top of their list. That's funny because you go to CNN's website on their talking about it. They have Rod Blagojevich, 2 other white guys, and then they don't show anyone else's picture. Okay, they didn't show Angela Stanton King, Crystal Munoz, or Tanise Hall. Okay, you got an Hispanic woman. Matter of fact, she's Navajo, actually, Native American woman, and then 2 black women. You didn't show them at all. You wanted to show the white guys to make it seem like, oh, it's just Trump looking out for his buddies and fellow white guys and Trump supporters. Although Blagojevich is a Democrat, he was on The Apprentice, so that must mean that Trump wants to help him because he's white. Anyway, she saw that and didn't see anything else. But this is what we're dealing with the mainstream media, with the personalities that are out there on the media, your Chelsea Handlers, your Van Jones, not Van Jones. Van Jones is doing good. Oh, Don Lemon is the worst. You'll ask Don Lemon about the black unemployment rate being very low, and he will just kind of like poo-poo it. Matter of fact, I think it was one guy that said that, well, you can't look at the black unemployment rate being lowest ever because in slavery, everybody was employed. It's like, sir, come on. Like, let's stop playing the games. If Obama was to have very low black unemployment numbers, then you would tout that because he's on your side. He's a Democrat. But since it's Trump, you don't want to even acknowledge it. If you are, and the guy was black, so it's like, okay, if you're black and you have a black area in which you govern or which represent, then why would you not support the very low black unemployment rate numbers? Lowest in recorded history since like the 60s when they started being recorded. I mean, you're just being a hater at that particular point and you're being partisan rather than being nonpartisan and looking at a good thing for being a good thing. Very simple. But hey, it is what it is. I just can't wait personally until we get to the actual Super Tuesday. Like I said, that's in like 13 days. That'll be March 3rd, 2020. And that'll be when we have a clear view who's going to be the nominee. I cannot wait. I may do a marathon stream that day. That's going to be fantastic. Exactly. AAC says it right there. 100% of slaves were not employed. No wage pay. Exactly. I mean, if I'm being employed, I got to get a paycheck, right? I mean, if I'm working for free, it's called volunteering. That's not an employer. Now, I'm not being paid by an employer. I'm not employed. Very good point. Thank you for that. I definitely appreciate you. But yeah, I think that was Clyburn, if I'm not mistaken, that said that. I want to say that James Clyburn. He says black unemployment was better when we were slaves. This guy right here, matter of fact, let me put it on the screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Okay, let's put him up on the screen. And that's him right there. So this guy got on TV and said that. It wasn't a comment that he made just randomly in a meeting or something like that. He got on TV and said that when he was asked about it. I mean, imagine being that big of a hater to the point where you can't even acknowledge a good thing about black folks that you would like to represent. I mean, you're a Democrat, you're a black guy, you're probably in a black area, you're probably part of the Congressional Black Caucus. Why wouldn't the Congressional Black Caucus be supportive of low black unemployment numbers? When I saw Trump give a State of the Union address, I did not see anybody from the CBC stand up and clap when he was talking about the black unemployment numbers being so low, lowest in recorded history. Nobody stood up. So it's like, okay, why are you guys a Congressional Black Caucus? For what? I mean, what is your purpose? You just there just to be black and that's it? That's stupid. Just be just regular Democrats and that's it. Don't put no little quote or title by your name. But anyway, I'm kind of getting triggered, but you guys know what I'm talking about. You understand where I'm coming from. Again, if you're just not coming in, we have the debate coverage coming in about 15 minutes. I'm going to start a little bit early to see what they're talking about on the pre-show, and then we'll get straight into the debate. This is going to be on NBC and MS-13 NBC, MSDNC. You know what I'm talking about. The candidates on stage. Oh, I almost forgot about that. Let's talk about the candidates on stage. We're going to have Joe Biden, Buttigieg, whatever his name is, Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, Bernie Sanders, Pocahontas, a.k.a. Elizabeth Warren, and Mike Bloomberg for the very first time. He qualified because he got 19% support in a national poll. All right. And if this was the NPR PBS NewsHour Marist survey. So that's like number 2 right behind Bernie. So he's doing better than Joe Biden and everybody except for Bernie Sanders. Andrew Yang, I think, dropped out. Who else is still in the race but is not officially dropped out? Has Tulsi Gabbard dropped out yet? I think she has to have dropped out at a particular point because you're not polling at all. If she's not dropped out, then I don't understand what she's waiting on. Okay. Oh, not yet. Wait a minute. I don't see that she's dropped out. Hold on. Let me see. Oh, okay. Here's something from February 12th. It says Tulsi Gabbard in South Carolina says dropping out of Democratic race hasn't been discussed. All right. I mean, I don't understand why. Maybe she wants to just try and be the spoiler. Maybe she wants to run third party. That could be what's happening because really your campaign's going nowhere. You're not polling. You've not been in the past few debates. What are we doing? Are you trying to run third party? Do you think Tulsi will get a lot of votes as a third party pick? I don't think so. This ain't Ross Perot. Not at all. The most you would do is take votes from Democrats, not anybody on the right. Support for Trump is at a just crazy high, very high on the Republican side. The enthusiasm behind Trump is tremendous. Tulsi Gabbard does not have enthusiasm on the left. So how would she have enthusiasm by being independent? I don't understand how that would make any sense. So she should go ahead and drop out. Deval Patrick, I think he's still in the race. Brandon, I think he's still in the race. I'm not really sure. But he should go ahead and drop out if he has not already. Shreebs, you're hilarious. He says, Bernie has been really good about not coming in his head with a balloon lately. Hilarious. He doesn't have that, what's the guy from the Aliens on History Channel? He doesn't have that crazy hair all the time. Okay. Tulsi should go ahead and drop out because it's like, what are we doing? If you're not polling at all, if you're not in any debates, if you're not out there in front of the people, it's like, who cares? What are you trying to accomplish? What is your actual goal? Like, I think that anybody that supports Tulsi is owed an explanation as why she's still in the race. Tell your supporters what she plans on doing going forward and how she plans to overcome not being in any debates for the past 2 months, not polling at all, not being on any kind of TV platform at all. Default Patrick got a town hall on CNN, but Tulsi Gabbard didn't. And Default Patrick is not even really in the equation, period. Yes, Yang did drop out. Yep. Yeah, this whole thing with Buttigieg, the gay married stuff, it ain't really going to fly. It's not going to fly. You know, the LGBTQ, ABCD community may think that it's going to fly, but it's not really going to fly. But thank you to the super chatters that have donated to me so far. Shout out to JD Ski 892 who says, can't wait to hear Comrade Sanders and him not explaining things. Also, them softball questions, exactly. Thank you for that, man. Definitely appreciate you. He also says, if the left was smart, they make Amy the nominee or Amy Klobuchar. I don't know about that one. I don't really see how that's really going to work out. But thank you for your donation. I definitely appreciate you. And shout out to Colette who says, ABL for president. I'll be the first one in line to vote. ABL is better than what we currently have. Wow, I'm going to say all that, but thank you for your donation. I definitely appreciate you. You're very kind. Shout out to Justin Miller who says, Justin's random question of the day. Who would you rather get a lap dance from, Hillary Clinton or Pocahontas? You must choose one. First of all, black men don't cheat. I'm in a relationship. Let's let it be out there and be clear. Anyway, wow. I don't know, man. I say Pocahontas because then I can say that I did not touch Hillary Clinton at all because Hillary Clinton, I'm not sure if she's actually, if she's a zombie, if she's a hologram. I don't know what's going on. So Pocahontas, I'm picking Pocahontas. Anyway, thank you for your donation and your hilarious question. Shout out to Will Redding who says it's a grease fire in that Democratic Party in the House and the fire hose is off. Thank you for your donation. I definitely appreciate you. Shout out to Eric Rich who says Bloomberg polling second. Guess money can buy you love. Guessing he brought some love from Jeffrey didn't kill himself Epstein multiple times. LOL. Hey, it's hard to tell. I don't know what's going on with that because your man has money as well. Steyer has money, but he's nowhere in the polls for the most part. Bloomberg, I don't know how he did it, but he did it. That money, he must be spending every money. He must spend every dollar in his pocket pretty much. But thank you for your donation. I definitely appreciate it. Thank you to Jessica S. who says she is now a ABL superstar. I appreciate you for joining the channel as an ABL superstar, 100%. And thank you to Stacey Felice who says, I am very tempted to watch the debate because I want to see my former mayor make a fool of himself, but I would much rather watch the Trump rally. I will check into your channel frequently tonight. You're fantastic, ABL. Thank you for your very kind words and your donation. I definitely appreciate you. And let's see if we can get some debate coverage happening in just a moment here. Let me see. It should be on YouTube as well, but if not, I'll find it where it's going to be. All right. And thank y'all for joining. I definitely appreciate you guys. If you like what you're hearing so far, please hit the like button, share the video as well. I'd appreciate it if you did that for me. That'd just be fantastic. All righty. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and go to this pre-show.
After him, and you know this, Kristen, they're going to go after him.
So what's going on right now? We got what's the man's name? Tom Perez. I think that's his name. He's a DNC chair out there doing his usual pep talk for the crowd. I'm not really sure what the pep talk was for, but hey, it's whatever. It's fine. Okay. So this is the pre-show. Are they going to show the regular show on NBC? That's what I want to know. At least on their YouTube, they're going to show this little pre-show, but maybe not. Maybe they'll show the full thing. Maybe they won't. They're just talking about a few different things here. Yeah. Oh man, you see a guy right there, Nevada for Yang. Oh, it's over though, man. It's over. He dropped out. It's a wrap, man. Like, let it go. I know you wanted your money and everything, and that's fine, but you gotta let it go.
He's going to hit back on and say, that's what made you rich. That's what the problem has been with America over the last many years.
Well, and it is going to be a key focus.
Okay.
All right,
I'm trying to read some of these signs.
Thank you. Andrea?
What does that say in the back?
Say, it's almost on. The debate is almost on. Get your popcorn. We're
Get
ready.
your popcorn. We're almost there, just moments away from the Democratic debate. And our coverage does continue after a quick break. Stay with us.
Okay, here's the crowd. Everybody's getting ready for the debate. So this is in, I think it's in Vegas, Las Vegas, Nevada.
And a traumatic experience. But do you remember the night of the Iowa caucuses 2 weeks ago? We came on the air. We said the results are coming in any minute. Then any minute became any hour. And then any hour became any day. What a mess. What a disaster. What a nightmare the 2020 Iowa Democratic caucuses were. Of course, you remember there were all the questions there with that app that had been designed to give those folks in the 1,700 or so precincts around the state a way to turn in their results. There was just all sorts of mistakes, all sorts of errors, all sorts of incompetence there in Iowa. Then we went to the New Hampshire primary. Things went pretty smoothly there. Well, guess what? We are back to a caucus state. Iowa was a caucus state. New Hampshire, a primary state. Nevada is a caucus state. And, of course, that raises the question, all of those problems we had there in Iowa, are we going to see a repeat of that in Nevada? Is that what happened in Iowa going to happen again in Nevada? So, again, keep in mind the things that went wrong in Iowa. You mentioned there was the app. There was this system that the state had devised, or the state Democratic Party, I should say, had devised to try to get the results in from the precinct to the state party. Oh, you just take out this phone, call up the app, punch in the results. All sorts of problems with that. So the Nevada Democratic Party is saying they have a different plan when it comes to tabulating and getting those results from the precincts to the state level. The other issue in Iowa, and we will see if this becomes an issue as well in Nevada, is simply that there were more requirements in 2020 than there ever had been before to show the math. And we talked about in caucuses, you show up, does your candidate get 15%? If your candidate doesn't get 15% at your local precinct, you become a free agent. You could go align with another candidate. You could align yourself as uncommitted. There's all of that there's those layers of activity that play out in the precinct caucuses. Well, in the past, the state Democratic Party said you don't have to show your math. Just call in the final number to the state will compile, state Democratic Party will compile all the results, and they'll put the results out there for the public. That's how it worked for basically 50 years with the Iowa caucuses. But this year, they said they were going to show the math. And I think one of the things that went wrong there in Iowa was they found out there's some human error when you're trying to, okay, wait, there were 16 people over here, there were 18 people over here. Let me do the math in my local precinct to try to figure out that's 19.673%. Everybody was writing down these numbers at the precinct level. They got them all into the state party. The state party took a look at some of these and they said, they don't quite add up. They don't quite make sense. And the state party ended up, they couldn't go back and redo these things. They ended up saying, hey, there are probably some errors in these final results, and there's nothing we can do about it. So I think that is another reason things went long in Iowa. It's another reason those results were such a mess when they came in. And it's a question whether Nevada is going to be able to avoid that, trying to be as transparent as Iowa was. By the way, we've talked about two of the first three here on the Democratic side are caucus states. You're not going to see a lot of caucuses once we get outside of Nevada. We had Iowa, we had Nevada. You got a few more caucus states here to come, 7 in total this year. That is cut in half from 2016. The Democratic National Committee, after the 2016.
This guy kind of babbling a little bit. He's just talking about the caucuses and whatnot. The debate should be getting started here pretty soon, probably in about 10 minutes. We're at about 8:49 p.m. Eastern time. The debate starts at 9 p.m. Eastern time, so we'll go ahead and get started as soon as they get started. Right now, I'm looking at the pre-show over on MS13 NBC's YouTube page. They're getting ratioed real heavy right now. Look at this here. You see the like versus dislike? Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. Don't look too good right there. Look at that. Man, it don't look too good for them at all. I mean, I don't see the enthusiasm here for the Democrats too much at all. It's looking kind of bad, actually. All right, but we're going to get started here pretty soon. 9 p.m. Eastern will be when we get started. All right. So they're just talking about a few different things here, just random stuff, getting ready for the actual debate. How long is it going to be? Probably 2 hours. Probably 9 to 11. That's pretty much what I'm guessing. I mean, it should have to be that long because you only got 6 guys and girls on stage. If I'm not mistaken, you got Biden, Edge, Klobuchar, Sanders, Pocahontas, and Bloomberg. So 6 people. So you don't need 3 hours to have a debate with 6 people. Everybody can get their point across in that amount of time. Hopefully we can just have everybody be asked some serious questions and not get softball stuff. That's what I want to see. Alrighty. So what's this guy right here talking about? Let's see.
Record. If he does well, he will reinforce the belief among Democrats that he's the man to take on Donald Trump. If he stumbles, he may absolutely see a significant drop-off in his growing campaign. So that's number one. Number two is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is threatening to sweep all 4 of the first 4. So the Democrats, the moderate Democrats, have to go after Bernie Sanders as well. Makes it a very difficult scenario.
Well, it's a great way to lay out what the stakes are tonight. And you have a lot of establishment Democrats who say with Bloomberg in the race, those moderate voters are getting split up, divided. And that has emboldened Senator Sanders. And he could potentially be on a path to have this all sewn up by Super Tuesday. Is that the way you see this, Governor?
Yep, pretty much.
Well, there's a chance of that. I'll give you an example. California has 415 delegates. Which dwarfs anybody else in the field. In the California poll yesterday, Bernie Sanders had 32%. None of the other moderates had more than 15%.
No flags in the background.
You know, in our primaries, you have to get 15% of the vote to get any delegates. Well, what happens if all the 5 moderates
Is he Bloomberg's boyfriend? That's hilarious.
In most congressional districts, they would qualify for no delegates, and Senator Sanders could walk away from California with 330 delegates, which would give him a gigantic lead. So there's a lot of things at stake here tonight, a lot of things.
And Governor, very quickly, what does a win look like for former Vice President Joe Biden? Does he have to come in the top 3 here in Nevada, or else is it game over for him?
Well, he has to come in either second or third, or if everyone's bunched, let's say at 16, 15, 14%, and he's in the bunch, that's sort of okay. He can go on to South Carolina. But he's got to win in South Carolina. And the interesting test is, will the candidates rough up Mike Bloomberg enough on things like stop and frisk and redlining, so some of that African-American support that he's taken away from the vice president goes back to the vice president in South Carolina. So don't count Vice President Biden out. I would analogize his campaign to where John McCain was in 2008 after the first couple of primaries. You remember, he lost those primaries, his staff resigned, no one gave him a chance, and he won the ballot he won the nomination on the first ballot.
All right, Governor Ed Rendell, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We do have to go back inside the debate hall. NBC's Lester Holt introducing tonight's candidates. You see him walking out there on stage. Let's listen in.
All right, there you have it. Wow, so diverse. So diverse. Oh my God, this is hilarious to me. What's the average age on stage right now? You got one young guy, Edge. Okie dokie, a little awkward. Bloomberg, Biden.
Here you have all 6 candidates on.
Hold on, Bloomberg, Biden, and what's his name? Bloomberg, Biden, and Bernie Sanders are over 77 years old. I think Biden is 77, Bloomberg and Sanders are 78. I mean, can we get some younger people on stage, though? I mean, come on, man. I had somebody say 214 average age. That's hilarious. Hey, that's what I'm saying, Mr. A. Where's the transgender black woman? That's what I want to see. I want to see the trans black woman that identifies as a rain droplet.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Bloomberg and Pocahontas are the same height. That's crazy. Here's a fun stat I came up with myself. I discovered it in this reel. Since 1900, there's been no U.S. president elected that was shorter than 5'10", except for, I want to say, FDR maybe and Jimmy Carter. Only two guys since 1900. Was it FDR? It was somebody. I can't remember who it was, but only two since 1900, and Jimmy Carter was one of them. And then those two were only 5'9", not 5'5", like your man Mini Mike.
Higher. This is the first night we will be seeing former Mayor Michael Bloomberg on the stage. And as Senator Bernie Sanders has now made his way out front with a double-digit lead, no doubt Mayor Bloomberg and Senator Sanders will be a target for other contenders. You can see while they have their last few minutes.
No, it wasn't FDR. It was somebody else. I forget who that was.
To jot down notes. They have got a lot to remember. They will certainly be covering a lot tonight. Again, for most of those candidates, they have been doing this for the last few months, familiar faces, but tonight will definitely get more aggressive for Mayor Bloomberg. This is his first time on the stage. As you heard from our colleague Ali Vitale just a few minutes ago, we're expecting to see a more aggressive Senator Elizabeth Warren tonight. After the last
Good
debate,
luck with
she was
that.
very reflective when she spoke to Lawrence O'Donnell. She said, I didn't get enough time in. I didn't make my case strong enough. Maybe I should have fought a little harder. It sounds like, or at least from our colleague Ali Vitale, that she'll be drawing a more defined line.
That's right, Daryl Claxton. He's short, but the money ain't short.
Really
That's very
haven't
true.
seen from her before. Remember, the two of them were both doing well. She was really getting out ahead. And then when she laid out her plan of how she planned to pay for Medicare for all, that's when you saw things start to slip off. And that is where she'll most likely go after Senator Sanders, as will other candidates, as far as he's got this big plan for Medicare for all. How specifically is he going to pay for it? NBC News Now, Simone Boyce is at Mi Familia Vota debate watch party in Las Vegas. We haven't seen a state yet, Iowa and New Hampshire. There hasn't been a big minority vote, an African-American vote, a Latino vote. Nevada is the first time we're going to see that, and it's quite a big voting bloc.
That's absolutely right, Stephanie. And as I've been speaking to voters on the ground here in Nevada over the past couple of days, the name that you hear quite a bit, at least among young Latino voters, is Senator Bernie Sanders. They feel like he has energized them, that he has been consistent in his approach to fighting for civil rights over the past several decades. But I do want to mention this fascinating Telemundo poll that just came out this week that indicated that support for Biden and Bernie Sanders among Latino voters, they are locked in a statistical tie. So support for Biden is at about 34% among Latino voters, support for Bernie Sanders at about 31%, and about 35% of Latino voters in Nevada either support another candidate or are undecided. And that's what we're finding here at this debate watch party that's taking place at an LGBTQ center just outside of Las Vegas. I want to bring in a voter who is here. His name is Rudy. He's attending this debate watch party and paying close attention tonight.
You ain't got time for that, man. We're trying to get to the debate at 9 o'clock.
And what happens on that stage tonight is going to play heavily into his decision. Really quickly, Rudy, what are you going to be looking for tonight? Who are the contenders that you're watching closely?
Mayor Pete and Amy. Those are two I'm undecided on. Just trying to figure out who's the best candidate for me.
And what do you want to see from Mayor Pete?
I understand his family values. I think he really does have great family values. As being a gay male myself, I kind of relate to him, but I just want to be able to see what Amy has to offer and what her views are.
Rudy, thank you so much. We'll be chatting with you throughout the debate watch party. We want to get to the action. Stephanie, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Simone. And the action is about to begin. I'm going to take you to the debate stage. Our colleague Lester Holt will be introducing the candidates in Las Vegas at the Paris Hotel. We are certainly in for a big night. Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, former Mayor Michael Bloomberg, all on the stage. The first time all of them facing off against one another. This is going to be quite the night. We have seen after the first two states this strong progressive movement. You know, there's a lot of talk. Once one candidate is chosen, will the Democrats all get under one tent? When you hear those Bernie Sanders supporters feeling the burn, you're not quite sure. Back in New Hampshire, many voters saying they were shopping, weren't sure who they were going to go with. Well, tonight is another night where they're going to get to make that decision. The debate is starting, so let's take you right there.
Okay. Let me see. Let's do this. I don't got no time for that.
Restore honor to our government and build a country that we can be proud of.
From NBC News, the Democratic presidential debate, live from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Let's get to it.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Welcome to Las Vegas. Everything is on the line tonight. We're just 3 days before the critical Nevada caucuses. Here with me on the stage tonight, NBC News political director and moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. And NBC News chief White House correspondent and MSNBC anchor, Hallie Jackson. Also joining us is Telemundo senior correspondent Vanessa Ock. And editor of the Nevada Independent, John Ralston, who has covered Nevada politics for more than 3 decades. The rules are this tonight. Candidates will get 1:15 to answer each question and 45 seconds for follow-ups. Now that the stage is narrowed to 6 candidates, we encourage each of you to directly engage with each other on the issues. So let's get to our first question. Since the last time you all shared the stage, Senator Sanders, a self-described Democratic socialist, has surged into the lead nationally in the Democratic race. And there's a new person on the stage tonight, Mayor Michael Bloomberg, a former Republican who spent millions of his own dollars to run in this race. What hasn't changed, a majority of Democratic voters still say their top priority is beating President Trump. Well, Senator Sanders, the first question to you. Mayor Bloomberg is pitching himself as a centrist who says he's best positioned to win in November. Why is your revolution a better bet?
In order to beat Donald Trump, we're going to need the largest voter turnout in the history of the United States. Mr. Bloomberg had policies in New York City of stop and frisk, which went after African American and Latino people in an outrageous way. That is not a way you're going to grow voter turnout. What our movement is about is bringing working class people together, black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, around an agenda that works for all of us and not just the billionaire class. And that agenda says that maybe, just maybe, we should join the rest of the industrialized world, guarantee health care to all people as a human right, raise that minimum wage to a living wage of $15 an hour, and have the guts to take on the fossil fuel industry, because their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet and the need to combat climate change. Those are some of the reasons we have the strongest campaign to defeat Donald Trump.
So Mayor Bloomberg, can Senator Sanders beat President Trump, and how do you want to respond to what else he said?
I don't think there's any chance of the senator beating President Trump. You don't start out by saying, I've got 160 million people, I'm going to take away the insurance plan that they love. That's just not a ways that you go and start building the coalition that the Sanders camp thinks that they can do. I don't think there's any chance whatsoever. And if he goes and is the candidate, we will have Donald Trump for another 4 years, and we can't stand that.
So I'd like to talk about who we're running against. A billionaire who calls women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg.
Uh-oh. Whoa.
Democrats
Whoa.
are not going to win if we have a nominee who has a history of hiding his tax returns, of harassing women, and of supporting racist policies like redlining and stop and frisk. Look, I'll support whoever the Democratic nominee is, but understand this. Democrats take a huge risk if we just substitute one arrogant billionaire for another. This country has worked for the rich for a long time and left everyone else in the dirt. It is time to have a president who will be on the side of working families and be willing to get out there and fight for them. That is why I am in this race, and that is how I will beat Donald Trump.
Senator Klobuchar, what do you think the path is from this stage to the White House?
I think the path is a high voter turnout. I'm the one on this stage that had the highest voter turnout of any state in the country when I led the ticket, as well as bringing in rural and suburban voters. And I've done that as well. And I'm the only one with the receipts to have done that in Republican congressional districts over and over again. But I want to say this. I actually welcomed Mayor Bloomberg to the stage. I thought that he shouldn't be hiding behind his TV ads. And so I was all ready for this big day. And then I looked at the memo from his campaign staff this morning. And it said that he actually thought that 3 of us should get out of the way. That is what his campaign said, because we should pave the way for him to become the nominee. You know, I have been told as a woman, as someone that maybe no one thought was still going to be standing up on this stage, but I am because of pure grit and because of the people out there. I've been told many times to wait my turn and to step aside. And I'm not going to do that now.
You should.
I'm not going to do that because a campaign memo from Mayor Bloomberg said this morning that the only way that we get a nominee is if we step aside for him. I think we need something different than Donald Trump. I don't think you look at Donald Trump and say we need someone richer in the White House.
Thank you. Mayor Bloomberg.
Man, they dogpile on the man.
I think we have 2 questions to face tonight. One is, who can beat Donald Trump? And number 2, who can do the job if they get into the White House? And I would argue that I am the candidate that can do exactly both of those things. I'm a New Yorker. I know how to take on an arrogant con man like Donald Trump that comes from New York. I'm a mayor, or was a mayor. I know how to run a complicated city, the biggest, most diverse city in this country. I'm a manager. I knew what to do after 9/11 and brought the city back stronger than ever. And I'm a philanthropist who didn't inherit his money, but made his money. And I'm spending that money to get rid of Donald Trump, the worst president we have ever had. And if I can get that done, it will be a great contribution to America and to my kids.
Vice President,
you didn't earn that. You didn't build that. You forgot about that, sir.
Who can beat Donald Trump? NBC did a poll yesterday. It says Joe Biden is best equipped to beat Donald Trump. That's what your poll said. And it said that I can beat him in those toss-up states, too, those states we have to win. I'm ahead by 8 points across the board. So in terms of being able to beat Donald Trump, I'm better positioned, according to your poll, than anybody else to beat Donald Trump. Number 1. Number 2. The mayor makes an interesting point. The mayor says that he has a great record, that he's done these wonderful things. Well, the fact of the matter is he has not managed his city very, very well when he was there. He didn't get a whole lot done. He had stop and frisk, throwing close to 5 million young black men up against a wall. And when we came along in our administration,
5 million.
President Obama, and said we're going to send in a mediator to stop it, he said that's unnecessary. So we're going to get a chance to talk about the mayor's record. But in terms of who is best prepared to beat Donald Trump, look at your poll and what it says.
Mayor Buttigieg, you'd like to weigh in?
Yes, we've got to wake up as a party. we could wake up 2 weeks from today, the day after Super Tuesday, and the only candidates left standing will be Bernie Sanders and Mike Bloomberg, the two most polarizing figures on this stage. And most Americans don't see where they fit if they've got to choose between a socialist who thinks that capitalism is the root of all evil and a billionaire who thinks that money ought to be the root of all power. Let's put forward somebody who actually lives and works in a middle-class neighborhood in an industrial Midwestern city. Let's put forward somebody who's actually a Democrat. Look, we shouldn't have to choose between one candidate who wants to burn this party down and another candidate who wants to buy this party out. Look, we can do better.
Senator Sanders, are you polarizing?
If speaking to the needs and the pain of a long-neglected working class is polarizing, I think you got the wrong word. What we are trying finally to do
to say yes
is to give a voice to people who, after 45 years of work, are not making a nickel more than they did 45 years ago. We are giving a voice to people who are saying we are sick and tired of billionaires like Mr. Bloomberg seeing huge expansions of their wealth while 500,000 people sleep out on the street tonight. And that's so what we are saying, Pete, is maybe it's a time for the working class of this country to have a little bit of power in Washington rather than your billionaire campaign contributors.
Hey, all right, look, first of all,
I know.
Look, my campaign is fueled by hundreds of thousands of contributors.
Including 26 billionaires.
Among the hundreds of thousands of contributors. And look, we've got to unite this country to deal with these issues. You're not the only one who cares about the working class. Most Americans believe we need to empower workers. As a matter of fact, you're the one who is at war with the culinary union right here in Las Vegas.
Support than you have ever dreamed of. We have the support of unions all across this country.
But the vision I'm putting forward has the support of the American people. Really? We can actually deliver health care without taking it away from anyone. We can actually empower workers and lift wages without further polarizing this country. And we can build a movement without having legions of our supporters online and in person.
All right, candidates, thank you.
I think it is
Democratic figures and union leaders alike.
Senator Warren, I have a question for you. On Sunday, on Meet the Press, Vice President Biden accused Senator Sanders' supporters of bullying union leaders here with, quote, vicious, malicious, misogynistic things. You said Democrats cannot build an inclusive party on a foundation of hate. Are Senator Sanders and his supporters making it harder for Democrats to unify in November?
Look, I have said many times before, we are all responsible for our supporters. And we need to step up. That's what leadership is all about. But the way we are going to lead this country and beat Donald Trump is going to be with a candidate who has rock-solid values and who actually gets something done. When Mayor Bloomberg was busy blaming African Americans and Latinos for the housing crash of 2008, I was right here in Las Vegas, literally just a few blocks down the street, holding hearings on the banks that were taking away homes from millions of families. That's when I met Mr. Estrada, one of your neighbors. He came in to testify, and he said he thought he'd done everything right with Wells Fargo. But what had happened? They took away his house in a matter of weeks. This man stood there and cried while he talked about what it was like to tell his two little daughters that they might not be in their elementary schools, that they might be living out of their van. I spent the next years making sure that would never happen again. Wall Street fought us every inch of the way on a consumer agency. They lost, and I won. We need a candidate with unshakable values and a candidate who can actually get something done for working people.
Thank you, Senator.
That's why I'm in this race, and that's how I'll beat Donald Trump.
Senator Sanders.
We have over 10.6 million people on Twitter, and 99.9% of them are decent human beings.
Bernie Bros.
Working people are people who believe in
Nut jobs.
justice, compassion, and love. And if there are a few people who make ugly remarks, who attack trade union leaders. I disown those people. They are not part of our movement.
That's your whole base.
I also say what I hope my friends up here will agree with is that if you look at the Wild West of the internet, talk to some of the African-American women on my campaign. Talk to Senator Nina Turner. Talk to others and find the vicious, racist, sexist attacks that are coming their way as well. So I would hope that all of us understand that we should do everything we possibly can to end the viciousness and ugliness on the internet. Our campaign is about issues. It's about fighting for the working families and the middle class. It is not about vicious attacks on other people.
Senator, when you say that you disown these attacks and you didn't personally direct them, I believe you.
Well, thank you.
But at a certain point, you got to ask yourself, why did this pattern arise? Why is it especially the case among your supporters?
I don't think it is especially the case.
It's not true. Look, well, people know.
Pete, if you want to talk to some of the women on my campaign, what you will see is the most ugly, sexist, racist attacks that are, I won't even describe them here. They're so disgusting. And let me say something else about this.
Please. From who, though?
Being too paranoid. All of us remember 2016. And what we remember is efforts by Russians and others to try to interfere in our election and divide us up. I'm not saying that's happening, but it would not shock me. I saw some of those tweets regarding the Culinary Workers Union. I have a 30-year, 100% pro-union voting record. Do you think I would support, or anybody supports me, would be attacking union leaders? It's not thinkable.
But leadership is about what you draw out of people. It's about how you inspire people to act. And right now we're in this toxic political environment. Leadership isn't just about policy. I think, at least in broad terms, we're largely pulling in the same direction on policy. But leadership is also about how you motivate people to treat other people. And I think you have to accept some responsibility and ask yourself what it is about your campaign in particular that seems to be motivating this behavior more than others. Because in order to turn the page on the Trump era, we're going to need a president, not just a candidate who can win, but a president who can move us forward.
Stop sexism on the internet. We could nominate a woman for candidate for president of the United States.
Oh, is that going to stop it?
It might go a long way if we showed our stuff as a party. And the other thing I want to talk about is really what is at the core of this issue between Senator Sanders and the Culinary Union. And that is this. These are hardworking people, housekeepers like Elizabeth and I met with last night, who have health care plans that have been negotiated over time, sweat and blood. And that is the truth for so many Americans right now.
You got to bleed for a minimum wage?
149 million Americans that would lose their current health insurance under Senator Sanders' bill. That's what it says on page 8, and I don't think we should forget that.
On that note, I want to turn it over to my colleague, Chuck Todd.
Senator Sanders, I'm going to stay on this topic, on the culinary, on this issue with the Culinary Union. Obviously, their leaders are warning their members about that your health care plan will take away their health care plan, take away private insurance completely. There are some Democrats who like you a lot, but worry that this plan, Medicare for All, is going to take away private insurance and that it goes too far. Are they right?
No. Let me be very clear. 2 points. For 100 years, from Teddy Roosevelt to Barack Obama, this country has been talking about the need to guarantee health care for all people. And yet today, despite spending twice as much per capita, Chuck, twice as much as any other major country on earth, we got 87 million who are uninsured or underinsured. We got over 60,000 people who die every year because they don't get to a doctor on time. We're getting ripped off outrageously by the greed and corruption of the pharmaceutical industry, which in some cases charges us 10 times more for the same drugs because of their price fixing. 500,000 people go bankrupt every year because they can't afford medical bills. So let me be very clear to my good friends in the Culinary Workers Union, a great union. I will never sign a bill that will reduce the health care benefits they have. We will only expand it for them, for every union in America, and for the working class of this country.
Senator Warren, you were all in on Medicare for All, and then you have since came up with a transition plan. Is it because of the impact on unions?
So I want to be clear. I've been to the culinary unions, healthcare facilities. They're terrific. You don't want to shut them down. You want to expand them. You want to see them all across Nevada and all across this country. But we need to get everybody's healthcare plan out here. Mayor Buttigieg really has a slogan that was thought up by his consultants to paper over a thin version of a plan that would leave millions of people unable to afford their health care. It's not a plan, it's a PowerPoint. And Amy's plan is even less. It's like a Post-it note, insert plan here. Bernie has started.
All right, Pocahontas, I like the aggression.
Has a good start.
Good aggression.
But instead of expanding and bringing in more people to help, instead his campaign relentlessly attacks everyone who asks a question or tries to fill in details about how to actually make this work. And then his own advisors say, probably won't happen anyway. Look, healthcare is a crisis in this country. My approach to this is we need as much help for as many people as quickly as possible and bring in as many supporters as we can. And if we don't get it all the first time, take the win and come back into the fight to ask for more. I promise,
guys, I'm going to get everybody in. I got you. Mayor Buttigieg, I think she name-checked you first. I'll let you go first.
You name-checked me second.
Yes, okay. I think Amy said.
I'm more of a Microsoft Word guy, and if you look at my plan, I don't know if there are any PowerPoints on it, but you can definitely find the document on PeteForAmerica.com, and you'll see
No, I'm good.
that
Thanks.
it is a plan that solves the problem, makes sure there is no such thing as an uninsured American, and does it without kicking anybody off the plan that they have. This idea that the union members don't know what's good for them is the exact kind of condescension and arrogance that makes people skeptical of the policies we've been putting forward. Here we have a plan that the majority of Americans support. Do you realize how historic that is? That the American people are ready in a way far beyond what was true even 10 years ago and what was available to President Obama at the time. There's a powerful American majority ready to undertake the biggest, most progressive reform we've had in healthcare in 50 years, just so long as we don't force it on anybody. What is wrong with that?
All right,
Can I respond to that?
Let me go to Senator Klobuchar, and then I'll have you respond.
Okay.
All right, Senator Klobuchar. Well, I think the Post-it note came first, Senator. I don't know. I do think the Post-it note came
I must say I take personal offense since Post-it notes were invented in my state.
So, 3M.
Okay. So my plan is a public option. And according to all the studies out there, it would reduce premiums for 12 million people immediately. It would expand coverage for about that same number. It is a significant thing. It is what Barack Obama wanted to do from the very beginning. And the way I look at it, since we're in Vegas, when it comes to your plan, Elizabeth, and Bernie's on Medicare for All, you don't put your money on a number that's not even on the wheel. And why is Medicare for All not on the wheel? Why is it not on the wheel? Because 2/3 of the Democratic senators are not even on that bill. Because a bunch of the new House members that got elected see the problems with blowing up the Affordable Care Act. They see it right in front of them. And the truth is that when you see some troubled waters, you don't blow up a bridge, you build one. And so we need to improve the Affordable Care Act, not blow it up.
Let me just. You name check 3 of them. Let me get Senator Sanders in there. You were.
Okay.
Go ahead, Senator Sanders. Okay. We'll get you in, Miss. All right. We got a lot of people in here. We got hit.
It's my turn, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Somehow or another, Canada can provide universal health care to all their people at half the cost. UK can do it, France can do it, Germany can do it, all of Europe can do it. Gee whiz, somehow or another, we are the only major country on earth that can't do it. Why is that? And I'll tell you why. It's because last year, the healthcare industry made $100 billion in profits. Pharmaceutical industry, top 6 companies, $69 billion in profit. And those CEOs are contributing to Pete's campaign and other campaigns up here.
Let's clear this
up. So maybe it is finally time time that we said as a nation, enough is enough. The function of a rational healthcare system is not to make the pharmaceutical industry and the drug companies rich. It is to provide healthcare to all people as a human right, not a privilege.
Mr. Vice President,
no premiums, no co-payments, no deductibles.
Let's go ahead. And then Senator Warren. Mr. Vice President and Senator Warren.
Hey, I'm the only one on this stage that actually got anything done on health care.
Did you get anything done? I don't know about Obamacare. Didn't really work out too well.
The votes for Obamacare. And I noticed what everybody's talking about is the plan that I first introduced. That is to go and add to Obamacare, provide a public option, a Medicare-like option. It cost and increase the subsidies. It cost a lot of money. It cost $750 billion over 10 years. But I pay for it by making sure that Mike and other people pay at the same tax rate their secretary pays at. That's how we get it paid, number one. Number two, you know, from the moment we passed that signature legislation, Mike called it a disgrace, number one. Number two, Trump decided to get rid of it. And number three, my friends here came up with another plan. But they don't tell you. When you ask Bernie how much it cost, the last time he said that, I think it was on your show, he said, we'll find out. We'll find out how, or something to that effect. It cost over $35 trillion. Right. Let's get real.
Senator Warren, you get the final word on this. We're going to move to another question. Go ahead, Senator Warren. Go ahead, Senator Warren.
So I actually took a look at the plans that are posted. Mayor Buttigieg, there are 4 expenses that families pay, right? Premiums, deductibles, copays, and uncovered medical expenses. Mayor Buttigieg says he will put a cap only on the premiums. And that means families are going to pick up the rest of the cost. Amy, I looked online at your plan. It's 2 paragraphs. Families are suffering, and they need a plan. You can't simply stand here and trash an idea to give health care coverage to everyone without having a realistic plan of your own. And if you're not going to own up to the fact either that you don't have a plan or that your plan is going to leave people without health care coverage, full coverage, then you need to say so. I just want to say on this one, I was in Reno when I met a man who said he had diabetes. He gets his insulin through the VA, but his sister and his daughter also have diabetes. No way to pay for their insulin. 3 human beings right here in Nevada
My plan
who
takes
are
care of that.
struggling. They share one insulin prescription.
Mayor Bloomberg, was Vice President Biden right? You weren't a fan of Obamacare?
I am a fan of Obamacare. At the beginning...
Oh, hey, Mike. Forgot about you.
Mr. Vice President, I just checked the record because you'd said one time that I was not. In 2009, I testified and gave a speech before the mayor's conference in Washington, advocating it and trying to get all the mayors to sign on. And I think at that time I wrote an article praising Obamacare. It was either in the New York Post or the Daily News. So the facts are I was there. Let me finish. Thank you. I was in favor of it. I thought it didn't go as far as we should. What Trump has done to this is a disgrace. The first thing we've got to do is get the White House and bring back those things that were left, and then find a ways to expand it. Another public option, to having some rules about capping charges. All of those things. We shouldn't just walk away and start something that is totally new, untried. People
Vice President Biden, go ahead.
The mayor said when we passed it, the signature piece of this administration, it's a disgrace. They're the exact words. It was a disgrace. Look it up. Check it out. It was a disgrace.
Thank you.
I cover, by the way, I plan. You do not have surprise billing. You bring down drug prices. People are not, it gives people all the things we're just talking about. I guess you're not got on the time to do it, but I'll get a chance to talk about it.
Thank you, sir. Lester?
All right. Mayor Bloomberg, at the beginning of this debate, you took some incoming fire on this next topic, so let's get into it.
A lot of incoming fire.
This is how you describe your policing policy as mayor. Quote, we put all the cops in the minority neighborhoods, and you explain that as, quote, because that's where all the crime is. You went on to say, and the way you should get the guns out of the kids' hands is to throw them against the wall and frisk them. You've apologized for that policy, but what does that kind of language say about how you view people of color, people in minority neighborhoods?
Well, if I go back and look at my time in office, the one thing that I'm really worried about, embarrassed about, was how it turned out with stop and frisk. When I got into office, there was 650 murders a year in New York City. And I thought that my first responsibility was to give people the right to live. That's the basic right of everything. And we adopted a policy which had been in place, the policy that all big police departments use of stop and frisk. What happened, however, was it got out of control. And when I discovered that we were doing too many stop and frisks, we cut 95% of it out. And I've sat down with a bunch of African-American clergy and business people to talk about this, to try to learn. I've talked to a number of kids who'd been stopped. And I was trying to understand how we change our policies so we can keep the city safe, because the crime rate did go from 650, 50% down to 300. And we have to keep the lid on crime, but we cannot go out and stop people indiscriminately.
Thank you. Let me go to Vice President Biden on this. You want to respond to that?
Yes, let's get something straight. The reason the stop and frisk changed is because Barack Obama sent moderators to see what was going on. When we sent them there to say this practice has to stop, the mayor thought it was a terrible idea we send them there. A terrible idea. Let's get the facts straight. Let's get the order straight. And it's not whether he apologized or not, it's the policy. The policy was abhorrent, and it was, in fact, a violation of every right people have. And we are the one. Our administration sent in people to monitor it, and at the very time, the mayor argued against that. This idea that he figured out it was a bad idea. He figured out it was a bad idea after we sent in monitors and said it must stop. Even then, he continued the policy.
All right, Mayor, would you like to make a quick response to that?
Yes, I would. I've sat, I've apologized, I've asked for forgiveness, but the bottom line is that we stopped too many people, but the policy, we stopped too many people, and we've got to make sure that we do something about criminal justice in this country. There is no great answer to a lot of these problems, and if we took off everybody that was wrong off this panel, everybody that was wrong on criminal justice at some time in their careers, there'd be nobody else up here.
And, he wasn't wrong, though.
Let's be clear. I'm sorry, who did you call on?
Senator Warren.
Sorry.
I do think that this really is about leadership and accountability. When the mayor says that he apologized, listen very closely to the apology. The language he used is about stop and frisk. It's about how it turned out. Now, this isn't about how it turned out. This is about what it was designed to do to begin with. It targeted communities of color. It targeted black and brown men from the beginning. And if you want to issue a real apology, then the apology has to start with the intent of the plan as it was put together and the willful ignorance day by day by day of admitting what was happening, even as people protested in your own street, shutting out the sounds of people telling you how your own policy was breaking their lives. You need a different apology.
Senator,
here,
thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor.
Chuck,
can I respond briefly?
Let me get Senator Klobuchar. We're going to stay on this topic. We're going to stay on this topic, but I want to get something in here with Senator Klobuchar. When you were the top prosecutor in Minneapolis, Senator, there were at least 24 instances where police were involved in the deaths of civilians. None of those officers were prosecuted. You did prosecute a black teenager who was sentenced to life in prison, despite what are now serious doubts about the evidence. Now, the Minneapolis chapter of the NAACP has recently called for you to suspend your campaign over that case because some new evidence has come out since. Big picture, why should black and Latino voters trust your judgment now if it appears you may have gotten it wrong then?
First, I'll start with that case. It is very clear that any evidence, if there is new evidence, even old evidence, it should be reviewed by that office and by the county attorney. That must happen. I have called for that review. This was a case involving an 11-year-old African-American girl named Taisha Edwards who was shot doing her homework at her kitchen table. 3 people were convicted. One of the cases is the one that is is being investigated, was investigated by a journalist, and I think it's very important that that evidence come forward. In terms of the police shootings that you noted, those went to a grand jury, every single one of them, and I've made very clear for months now that, like so many prosecutors, I think those cases, in my time, they were all going to the grand jury. It was thought that was the best way to handle them in many jurisdictions.
Should have spoke up? You didn't speak up at the time, should you?
I actually did speak up on something very similar, and that was when our police chief in Minneapolis tried to take the investigations of police shootings into his own hands, and I strongly said I disagreed with that. Now I do believe also that a prosecutor should make those decisions herself. And the last thing I will say, because you asked the question about voting, I have the support of African Americans in my community in every election. I had strong support.
As a Democrat, that's not really
leadership, and that's because I earned it. And this is going to be on me to earn it. You earn it with what you stand for when it comes to equal opportunity. You earn it with the work that I have done, the leadership I've shown on voting rights, and yes, you earn it with the work that must be done on criminal justice reform.
I want to talk about transparency here because many Democrats, including most of you on stage, have criticized President Trump for his lack of transparency. But Senator Sanders, when you were here in Las Vegas in October, you were hospitalized with a heart attack. Afterwards, you pledged to make, quote, all your medical records public. You've released 3 letters from your doctors, but you now say you won't release anything more. What happened to your promise of full transparency?
Well, I think we did. Let me tell you what happened. First of all, you're right. And thank you, Las Vegas, for the excellent medical care I got in the hospital 2 days. And I think the one area maybe the Mayor Bloomberg and I share, you have 2 stents as well. All right.
25 years ago.
Well, we both have 2 stents. It's a procedure that it's done about 1 million times a year. So we released the full report of that heart attack. Second of all, we released the full, my whole 29 years in the Capitol, the attending physician, all of my history, medical history, and furthermore, we released reports from 2 leading Vermont cardiologists who described my situation, and by the way, who said Bernie Sanders is more than able to deal with the stress and the vigor of being President of the United States. Hey, follow me around the campaign trail, 3, 4, 5 events a day. See how you're doing compared to me.
Well, you had a heart attack, sir.
Critical about transparency on this stage and people needing to do better. Is that response from Senator Sanders enough for you?
No, it's not, because first of all, let me say we're all delighted that you are in fighting shape. And at the same time, transparency matters, especially living through the Trump era. Now, under President Obama, the standard was that the president would release full medical records, do a physical, and release the readout. I think that's the standard that we should hold ourselves to as well. Now, President Trump lowered that standard. He said just a letter from a doctor is enough, and a lot of folks on this stage are now saying that's enough. But I am certainly prepared to get a physical, put out the results. I think everybody here should be
about 35. Of course you're going to do it.
I'm actually less concerned about the lack of transparency on Sanders' personal health than I am about the lack of transparency on how to pay for his health care plan, since he said that it's impossible to even know how much it's going to cost. And even after raising taxes on everybody making $29,000, there is still a multi-trillion-dollar hole. Matter of fact, if you add up his policies altogether, they come to $50 trillion. He's only explained $25 trillion worth of revenue, which means that the hole in there is bigger than the size of the entire economy of the United States. The time has come to level with the American people on matters personal and on matters of policy.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Quickly.
Well, talk about it.
It's level, Pete. Under your plan, which is a maintenance continuation of the status quo, can I finish? The average American today is paying $12,000 a year. That's what that family is paying. 20% of a $60,000 income, $12,000 a year. Highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Just the other day, a major study came out from Yale epidemiologists in Lancet, one of the leading medical publications in the world. What they said, my friends, is Medicare for All will save $450 billion a year. Because we are eliminating the absurdity of thousands of separate plans that require hundreds of billions of dollars of administration. And by the way, ending the $100 billion a year in profiteering from the drug companies and the insurance companies.
My plan is the status quo, and that's false. Look, if my plan is the status quo, why was it attacked by the insurance industry the moment it came out? And on issue after issue after issue, this is what Senator Sanders is saying. If you're not with him, if you're not all the way on his side, then you must be for the status quo. Well, you know what? That is a picture that leaves most of the American people out.
I want to go to Mayor Bloomberg on this transparency issue. Very briefly on transparency, Mayor Bloomberg, your campaign has said that you would eventually release your tax records when it comes to transparency. But people are already voting now. Why should Democratic voters have to wait?
It just takes us a long time. Unfortunately or fortunately,
Can I comment on that?
Fortunately, I make a lot of money, and we do business all around the world, and we are preparing it. The number of pages will probably be in the thousands of pages. I can't go to TurboTax, but I put out my tax return every year for 12 years in City Hall. We will put out this one. It tells everybody everything they need to know about every investments that I make and where the money goes. And the biggest item is all the money I give away. And we list that. Every single donation I make.
The same thing Trump does.
That from our foundation anytime.
The income disclosure.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my husband in the front row that has to do our taxes all the time. We probably could go to TurboTax. And the point of this is I believe in transparency. I had a physical, by the way. It came out well. We might all be surprised if my blood pressure is lower than Mayor Pete's. That might really shock everyone out there. And I think you should release your records from your physical. Secondly, when it comes to tax returns, everyone up here has released their tax returns, Mayor. I think, and it is a major issue because the President of the United States has been hiding behind his tax returns, even when courts order them.
What are you going to find in the tax returns, really?
And I think, I don't care how much money anyone has. I think it's great you got a lot of money, but I think you've got to come forward with your tax returns.
Senator, I want to get to you in a second. Mayor Bloomberg, quick response to Senator Klobuchar.
We're releasing them. They'll be out in a few weeks, and that's just as fast as I can do it. Remember, I only entered into this race 10 weeks ago. All of my associates here have been at this for a couple of years, and we do
That's
not.
right. We have engaging with voters.
Let me ask you about something else, Mr. Mayor, because Mayor Bloomberg, let me ask you about something else.
And get it done.
Senator Warren.
Wish it were that simple.
Mayor, I'll let you get in here, but Mayor Bloomberg.
It would save me a lot of money.
Let me ask you about something else. Several former employees have claimed that your company was a hostile workplace for women. When you were confronted about it, you admitted making sexually suggestive remarks, saying, quote, "That's the way I grew up." In a lawsuit in the 1990s, according to the Washington Post, one former female employee alleged that you said, quote, "I would do you in a second." Should Democrats expect better from their nominee?
Good questions.
Let me say a couple things, and if I can have my full minute and a quarter, thank you. I have no tolerance for the kind of behavior that the Me Too movement has exposed. And anybody that does anything wrong in our company, we investigate it, and if it's appropriate, they're gone that day. But let me tell you what I do in my company and my foundation and in city government.
Dodge that question like a bullet.
My foundation, the person that runs it's a woman. 70% of the people there are women. In my company, lots and lots of women have big responsibilities. They get paid exactly the same as men. And in my in City Hall, the top person, my deputy mayor, was a woman, and 40% of our commissioners were women. I am very proud of the fact that about 2 weeks ago, we were awarded. We were voted the the best place to work.
Stumbling and bumbling.
Second best place in America. If that doesn't say something about our employees and how happy they are, I don't know what does.
Senator Warren, you've been critical of Mayor Bloomberg on this issue.
Yes, I have, and I hope you heard what his defense was. I've been nice to some women. That just doesn't.
Oh man, hilarious.
The mayor has to stand on his record, and what we need to know is exactly what's lurking out there. He has gotten some number of women, dozens, who knows, to sign non-disclosure agreements, both for sexual harassment and for gender discrimination in the workplace. So, Mr. Mayor, are you willing to release all of those women from those non-disclosure agreements?
Uh-oh.
We can hear
Uh-oh.
the side of the
Uh-oh. NDAs? Uh-oh. Wow, Pocahontas doing very good tonight with the punching.
We have a very few non-disclosure agreements.
How many is
Let me
there?
finish.
Yikes.
How many is
Yikes.
None of them accuse me of doing anything other than maybe they didn't like the joke I told. And let me put, there's agreements between two parties that wanted to keep it quiet, and that's up to them. They signed those agreements, and we'll live with it.
So wait, when you say it is up to, I just want to be clear. Some is how many? And when you say they signed them and they wanted them, if they wish now to speak out and tell their side of the story about what it is they allege, that's now okay with you? You're releasing them on television tonight?
Senator,
Wow. Doing very good, Pocahontas. I like it. I like it.
Senator, the company and somebody else, in this case, a man or a woman, or could be more than
A man? What?
They decided when they made an agreement that they wanted to keep it quiet for everybody's interest. They signed the agreements, and that's what we're going to live with.
I'm sorry. No, the question is, are the women bound by being muzzled by you? And you could release them from that immediately. Because understand, this is not just a question of the mayor's character. This is also a question about electability. We are not going to beat Donald Trump with a man who has who knows how many non-disclosure agreements and the drip, drip, drip of stories of women saying they have been harassed and discriminated against. That's not what we do.
Yikes. I'm clutching my pros over here.
Look, let's get something straight here. It's easy. All the mayor has to do is say, you are released from the non-disclosure agreement. Period.
Now, even Biden jumping in and punching.
About transparency.
Hilarious.
This guy got himself in trouble and maybe saying that there was he couldn't disclose what he did. He went to his company.
Just to be super clear, that was about the list of clients.
No.
All right.
But he said, he went to the company and said, I want to be released. I want to be able to do it. Look, this is about transparency from the very beginning, whether it's your health record, whether it's your taxes, whether you have cases against you, whether or not people have signed non-disclosure agreements. You think that women, in fact, were ready to say, I don't want anybody to know about what you did to me? That's not how it works. The way it works is they say, look, this is what you did to me, and the mayor comes along and his attorney says, I will give you this amount of money if you promise you'll never say anything. That's how it works.
Mayor Bloomberg, final words here.
Wow, Bloomberg.
I said we're not going to get to end these agreements because they were made consensually, and they have every right to expect that they will stay private.
If they want to
Audible
release
boos.
them, they should be able to release themselves.
Can I add a word to
Say
this?
yes.
You know, we talk about electability. Everybody up here
He's
wants
like,
to
nah,
be
I ain't doing
Trump.
that.
And we talked about stop and frisk, and we talked about the workplace that Mayor Bloomberg has established and the problems there. But maybe we should also ask how Mayor Bloomberg in 2004 supported George W. Bush for president, put money into Republican candidates for the United States Senate when some of us, Joe and I and others, were fighting for Democrats to control the United States Senate. And maybe we can talk about a billionaire saying that we should not raise the minimum wage, or that we should cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. If that's a way to beat Donald Trump, wow, I would be very surprised.
Thank you, Senator. Vanessa, to you.
Wait.
Senator Klobuchar, you're running on your Washington experience, but last week in a Telemundo interview, you could not name the president of Mexico or discuss any of his policies. Last night, you defended yourself saying, quote, this is in jeopardy.
Lopez Obrador.
My question to you is, shouldn't our next president know more about one of our largest trading partners?
Of course. Of course. And I don't think that momentary forgetfulness actually reflects what I know about Mexico and how much I care about it. And I first want to say greetings to President López Obrador.
Got to get it right.
Secondly, What I meant by the game of Jeopardy is that I think we could all come up with things. You know, how many members are there in the Israeli Knesset? 120. Who is the president of Honduras? Hernandez. But when it comes to Mexico, I am the one person on this stage that came out first to say I was for the U.S.-Mexican-Canadian trade agreement. That is going to be one of the number one duties of a president.
Senator Klobuchar, my colleague specifically asked you if you could name the president of Mexico, and your response was no.
Yes, that's right. And I said that I made an error. I think having a president
Jeopardy was funny.
that maybe is humble and is able to admit that here and there maybe wouldn't be a bad thing.
Mayor Buttigieg,
if you could let me...
Good response.
That's okay. That's acceptable.
Liken this to trivia. I actually didn't know how many members were in the Knesset, so you got me there. But you're staking your candidacy on your Washington experience. You're on the committee that oversees border security. You're on the committee that does trade. You're literally in part of the committee that's overseeing these things. And we're not able to speak to literally the first thing about the politics of the country to ourselves.
Are you trying to say that I'm dumb, or are you mocking me here, Pete?
I'm saying that you
Oh, come on. Don't get so triggered.
People sometimes forget names. I am the one that has, number one, has the experience based on passing over 100 bills. If I could respond, this was a pretty big allegation. He's basically saying that I don't have the experience to be president of the United States. I have passed over 100 bills as the lead Democrat since being in the U.S. Senate. I am the one, not you, that has won statewide in congressional district after congressional district. And I will say, when you tried in Indiana, Pete, to run, what happened to you? You lost by over 20 points to someone who later lost to my friend Joe Donnelly. So don't tell me about experience. What unites us here is we want to win. And I think we should put a proven winner in charge of the ticket.
This is a race for president. This is a race for president. If winning a race for Senate in Minnesota translated directly to becoming president, I would have grown up under the presidency of Walter Mondale. This is different. And the reason that I think we need to talk about Washington experience is that we should ask what that experience has led to. Experience is, and certainly tenure is not always the same thing as judgment. If we're going to talk about votes in the Senate in Washington, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about a major policy.
Next question is Hello. Thank you. Senator Warren and Mayor Bloomberg, this question is for you.
Let him talk. Let the black man talk.
Can I just defend Senator Klobuchar?
Let the black man talk. How about that?
Not right. I understand that she forgot a name. It happens. It happens to everybody on this stage. Look, you want to ask about whether or not you understand trade policy with Mexico? Have at it. And if you get it wrong, man, you ought to be held accountable for that. You want to ask about the economy and you get it wrong, you ought to be held accountable. You want to ask about 1,000 different issues and you get it wrong, you ought to be held accountable. But let's just be clear. Missing a name all by itself does not indicate that you do not understand what's going on. And I just think this is unfair.
Senator Warren, you're right. But Senator Klobuchar could not discuss Mexican policy.
Fair enough.
I'm the only one who knows this man and met with him.
I do have to respond.
Come on, man.
You have just invoked my name again, and I ask you to look at the interview I did directly after the forum, which we went into great detail on Latin American policy. And I want to say one thing about Mayor Pete, where we just disagree. He was asked on a debate stage about the Mexican cartels. Which are bad criminal organizations. He said that he would be open to classifying them as terrorist organizations. I actually don't agree with that. That is a very valid debate to have. I don't think that would be good for our security coordination with Mexico, and I think you got that wrong.
Well, at least spent more time in Mexico than anybody. Can I get a chance to say something?
Hold on, Vice President.
Thank you. Look, I'm the only one who spent extensive hundreds of hours in Latin America. I've met with this president. I've met with the last president, the one before that. I've been deeply involved in making sure that we have a policy that makes more sense than this god-awful president we have now. I'm the guy that put together $750 million to provide help for those Latin American countries that are the reason why people are leaving, because there's nothing for them to stay for. I've spent hours and hours and hours. And so you want to talk about experience in Washington. It's good to know with whom you're talking. It's good to know what they think. It's good to know what you think. And it's good to be able to have a relationship. That's what it's about.
All right. Well, we are clearly everybody's warmed up. We're going to take a short break and kick off the next hour with a topic many voters have said is top of mind, the climate crisis.
Oh, boy.
In a moment.
All right. We got a little break here. Man, this has been really funny so far. Are you not entertained? This is hilarious. I think adding Bloomberg has brought in a lot of entertainment here because, before it was just kind of like, all right, you know what everybody's pretty much on. They've said the same thing over and over again for the past few debates. Now you have kind of a wild card happening. You got Bloomberg thrown into the mix. So you got a little bit of, I think things have kind of changed up a little bit. So, yeah, this has been really, really interesting. I don't even know where to begin. Bloomberg is getting attacked on all fronts. He's getting hit left, right, side to side. They're talking about stop and frisk. The whole NDA thing, I didn't even know about that. I didn't know that this man had women on NDAs because of harassment allegations or whatever. That's hilarious. And he said, no, I ain't taking them off. Bloomberg is going to keep this shrewd New York business guy thing. Is it going to work for him in the polls? I'm not really sure. Because before it's like, okay, you can see the guy in the ads. He looks really good. And you see the ad all the time. That may have him high up in the polls, but will it translate into people actually supporting him when they see him in person? I'm not exactly 100% sure. But whatever the case may be, I think we're seeing what he's all about personality-wise now. And we're seeing some things we didn't know about him before in this debate that are coming out. But yeah, I think he made a good point. It's like, look, they were signed and, I'm going to keep the agreements and won't go anywhere else. I'm going to keep them the way they are. But I don't know if that's really going to work. When you're talking about the polls, again, he's doing well right now, but that may not last. Is he going to tank after this debate? That could very well happen. Like I said, he's like at number 2 in a national poll put on by PBS, if I'm not mistaken. That could most certainly dip. But if it dips, who's going to take his space in the number 2 spot? I think Edge is doing okay here. Warren is doing much better. I think the whole thing of having Bloomberg in the race has been a blessing in disguise for a Pocahontas, because now she's able to kind of assert herself as being a little bit more dominant, a little bit more aggressive, and she needs to do that because before, in the previous debate, she wasn't really there, kind of just floating around. She wasn't even really there in the debate. So now she has more of a presence. Now she's being more aggressive. So I think Bloomberg has helped her a lot. She has a guy that's an easy target, kind of a punching bag for her to appear to be more dominant and aggressive. And she needs that going forward if she wants to gain any kind of traction that she has lost over the past few weeks and months. But we're going to see, Joe Biden jumped in the fray attacking Bloomberg, although he was not as successful in being able to attack him by being able to be verbose and quick and sharp like Edge and also Warren were able to be. Klobuchar to a certain extent as well. He was not as sharp, but he was able to still get a few jabs in here and there. So this is very interesting. I'm liking the change up. I don't know how long Bloomberg has left. When they get to the climate change kerfuffle, I want to see what they say on that. I think Edge might be the guy. Tom Steyer's not here. Did Tom Steyer drop out? I don't know if he did or not, but he's not in this debate. No, he pretty much ordained himself as the patron saint of climate change, but he's not here tonight. So I wonder who's going to take up the reins since Tom Steyer's not here. Who knows? It could be Edge. He may try to equate the LGBTQ, ABCDEFG community to climate change some kind of way. Don't know how they really work together, but somehow try to do it. And what else are they going to talk about? I think the whole stop and frisk criminal justice thing is pretty much done, and they're going to leave that in the past. But what are they going to do going forward? I don't really know. And they're back.
Welcome back. We received hundreds of questions from Democratic voters, and many of them were about the climate crisis. It's an issue that uniquely impacts Nevadans. John Ralston from the Nevada Independent kicks us off now.
So, y'all ready to play some Nevada trivia now? I'm only half joking here. Let's talk about this issue because it's up there in polls. Voters are really concerned about it, as you all know. What you might not know is that Las Vegas and Reno are the vibrant economic engines for the state of Nevada and are also two of the fastest warming cities in the country. In certain months of the year, the heat is already an emergency situation for residents and for tourists walking up and down the Strip. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Vice President. What specific policies would you implement that would keep Las Vegas and Reno livable, but also not hurt those economies?
It is the existential threat that humanity faces, global warming. I went out to Texas, and you have a facility where you have one of the largest solar panel arrays in the world. And when the fourth stage is completed, it will be able to take care of 60,000 homes for every single bit of their need.
Get some water, sir.
And what I would do is, number one, work on providing the $47 billion we have for tech and to making sure we find answers, is to provide a way to transmit that wind and solar energy across the network of the United States. Invest in battery technology. I would immediately reinstate all of the elimination of what Trump has eliminated in terms of EPA. I would secondly make sure that we had 500,000 new charging stations in every new highway we built in the United States of America or repaired. I would make sure that we once again made sure that we got the mileage standards back up, which would have saved over 12 billion barrels of oil had he not walked away from it. And I would invest in rail. Rail can take hundreds of thousands, millions of cars off the road if we have high-speed rail.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I want to get some of the rest of you in on this because y'all have plans. Yeah. Mayor Bloomberg, let me read what you said about this issue. You said you want to intensify U.S. and international actions to stop the expansion of coal. How exactly are you going to do that?
Well, already we've closed 304 out of the 530 coal-fired power plants in the United States, and we've closed 80 out of the 200 or 300 that are in Europe. Bloomberg Philanthropies working with the Sierra Club. That's one of the things you do. But let's start at the beginning. If you're president, the first thing you do the first day is you rejoin the Paris Agreement. This is just ridiculous for us to drop out. Two, America's responsibility is to be the leader in the world. And if we don't, we're the ones that are going to get hurt just as much as anybody else. And that's why I don't want to have us cut off all relationships with China, because you will never solve this problem without China and India, Western Europe and America. That's where most of the greenhouse gas. Let me just finish one other thing. I believe, and you can tell me whether this is right, but the solar array that the Vice President was talking about is being closed because it's not economic, that you can put solar panels in and modern technology, even more modern.
Look at Joe.
I want to let Senator Warren jump in here just because you've said something that's really specific to Nevada. And the tension here in this state is between people who want renewable energy and people who want conservation on public lands. Yeah. 85% of Nevada is managed by the federal government. You have said that you were going to have an executive order that would stop drilling on public land, stop mining, which is a huge industry here. You got to have lithium. You got to have copper for renewable energy. How do you do that?
So, look, I think we should stop all new drilling and mining on public lands and all offshore drilling. If we need to make exceptions because there are specific minerals that we've got to have access to, then we locate those and we do it not in a way that just is about the profits of giant industries, but in a way that is sustainable for the environment. We cannot continue to let our public lands be used for profits by those who don't care about our environment and are not making it better. Look, I'm going to say something that is really controversial in Washington, but I think I'm safe to say this here in Nevada. I believe in science, and I believe that the way that that we're going to deal with this problem is that we are going to increase by tenfold our investment in science. There's an upcoming $27 trillion market worldwide for green, and much of what is needed has not yet been invented. My proposal is let's invent it here in the United States and then say, we invented in the U.S., you've got to build it in the U.S. That's a million new manufacturing
We're going to stick to this topic, but Senator Sanders, I'm going to move to fracking. You want a total ban on natural gas extraction, fracking in the next 5 years. The industry obviously supports a lot of jobs around the country, including thousands in the battleground state of Pennsylvania. One unit official there told the New York Times, quote, if we end up with a Democratic candidate that supports a fracking ban, I'm going to tell my members that either you don't vote or you vote for the other guy. What do you tell these workers? It's supporting a big industry right now, sir.
What I tell these workers is that the scientists are telling us that if we don't act incredibly boldly within the next 6-7 years, there will be irreparable damage done, not just to Nevada, not just to Vermont or Massachusetts, but to the entire world. Joe said it right. This is an existential threat. You know what that means, Chuck? That means we're fighting for the future of this planet. And the Green New Deal that I support, by the way, will create up to 20 million good-paying jobs as we move our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy.
You got to try to invent stuff to make it happen. Come on.
Issue, my friends. We have to take the responsibility of making sure that the planet we leave our children and grandchildren is a planet that is healthy and habitable, that is more important than the profits of the fossil fuel industry.
I want to keep this going. Senator Klobuchar, you're not on the same page at a total ban of fracking. You call it a transitional fuel. But scientists are sounding this alarm now. Do you take these warnings that maybe fracking is a step backwards, not a step forward, not a transition?
I've made it very clear that we have to review all of the permits that are out there right now for natural gas, and then make decisions on each one of them, and then not grant new ones until we make sure that it's safe. But it is a transitional fuel. And I want to add something that really hasn't been brought up by my colleagues. This is a crisis, and a lot of our plans are very similar to get to carbon neutral by 2045, 2050, something like that. But we're not going to be able to pass this unless we bring people with us. I'm looking at these incredible senators from Nevada, Catherine Cortez Masto and Jackie Rosen, and I'm thinking, you know how important this is. And you can do this in a smart way. One, get back into that international climate change agreement. Two, clean power rules, bring those back. And the president can do this herself without Congress, as well as the gas mileage standard. But when it comes to putting a price on carbon, this is very important, Chuck. We have to make sure that that money goes back directly as dividends to the people that are going to need help for paying their bills. Otherwise, we're not going to pass it. So there has to be a heart to the policy to get this done.
Senator Warren, address the worker issue, if you don't mind, as well. Can you address the worker issue?
Yes, we can have a Green New Deal and create jobs. We need people in infrastructure who will help build. We have manufacturing. They could lose that job tomorrow, though. That's what they're concerned about. Those jobs are for tomorrow. Those are the ones we need to be working on to harden our infrastructure right now. But listen to Senator Klobuchar's point. She says we have to think smaller in order to get it passed. I don't think that's the right approach here. Why can't we get anything passed in Washington on climate? Everyone understands the urgency, but we've got two problems. The first is corruption, an industry that makes its money felt all through Washington. The first thing I want to do in Washington is pass my anti-corruption bill so that we can start making the changes we need to make on climate. And the second is the filibuster. If you're not willing to roll back the filibuster, then you're giving the fossil fuel industry a veto.
Thank you, Vanessa.
All of the work
Senator, thank you. Vanessa's got the next question.
Vice President Biden, you have said that you want to hold oil and gas executives accountable for their role in harming our planet. You have even suggested that you might put them in jail. Which companies are you talking about, and how far are you willing to go?
I'm willing to go as far as we have to go. First of all, I would eliminate all the subsidies we have for oil and gas. Eliminate it, period. That would save millions and millions of billions of dollars. Number two, I think that any executive who is engaged in, and by the way, minority communities are the communities being most badly hurt by the way in which we deal with climate change. They are the ones who become the victims.
Cut it out.
That's where the asthma is. That's where the groundwater supply has been polluted. That's where, in fact, people, do not have the opportunity to be able to get away from everything from still asbestos in the walls of our schools. I have a $1 trillion program for infrastructure. That will provide for thousands and thousands of new jobs, not $15 an hour, but $50 an hour plus benefits. Unions being able to do that. And what it does is it will change the nature. Look, here's the last point I want. My time's going to run out. Here's the last point I want to make to you. On day one, when I'm elected president, I'm going to invite all of the members of the Paris Accord to Washington, D.C. They make up 85% of the problem. They know me. I'm used to dealing with international relations. I will get them to up the ante in a big way.
Vice President Biden, you didn't answer to my questions. What would you do with these companies that are responsible for the destruction of our planet?
What would I do with them? I would make sure they, number one, stop. Number two, if you demonstrate that they, in fact, have done things already that are bad and they've been lying, they should be able to be sued. They should be able to be held personally accountable. And they should, and not only the company, not the stockholders, but the CEOs of those companies. They should be engaged. And it's a little bit like, look, this is the industry we should be able to sue. We should go after, just like we did the drug companies, just like we did with the tobacco companies. The only company we can't go after are gun manufacturers because of my buddy here, but that's a different issue.
We're going to stay on the topic.
What was that about the gun manufacturer?
My question is to Mayor Bloomberg. Mayor Bloomberg, your business is heavily invested in China. I think you mentioned that a few questions back. The #1 producer in the world of carbon emissions. How far would you go to force China to reduce those emissions and tackle the climate crisis?
Well, you're not going to go to war with them. You have to negotiate with them and try to, and we've seen how well that works with tariffs that are hurting us. What you have to do is convince the Chinese that it is in their interest as well. Their people are going to die just as our people are going to die, and we work together. In all fairness, the Chinese have slowed down. It's India that is an even bigger problem, but it is an enormous problem. Nobody's doing anything about it. We could, right here in America, make a big difference. We're closing the coal-fired power plants. If we enforced some of the rules on fracking so that they don't release methane into the air and into the water, you'll make a big difference. But we're not going to get rid of fracking for a while. And we frack, incidentally, not just natural gas, you frack oil as well. It is a technique, and when it's done poorly, like they're doing in too many places where the methane gets out into the air, it is very damaging. But it's a transition fuel. I think the senator said it right. We want to go to all renewables, but that's still many years from now. And before, I think the senator mentioned 2050 for some data. No scientist thinks the numbers for 2050 are 2050 anymore. They're 2040, 2035. The world is coming apart faster than any scientific study had predicted. You've just got to do something now.
Mayor Buttigieg, your thoughts.
Let's be real about the deadline. It's not 2050, it's not 2040, it's not 2030, it's 2020. Because if we don't elect a president who actually believes in climate science now, we will never meet any of the other scientific or policy deadlines that we need to. So first of all, let's make sure we're actually positioned to win, which once again, if we put forward the two of the most polarizing figures on this stage as the only option, is going to be a real struggle. Now, I've got a plan to get us carbon neutral by 2050, and I think everybody up here has a plan that more or less does the same. So the real question is, how are we going to actually get it done? We need leadership to make this a national project that breaks down the partisan and political tug of war that prevents anything from getting done. How do you do it? Well, first of all, making sure that those jobs are available quickly. Secondly, ensuring that we are pulling in those very sectors who have been made to feel like they're part of the problem, from farming to industry, and fund as well as urge them to do the right thing. And then global climate diplomacy. I'm a little skeptical of the idea that convincing is going to do the trick when it comes to working with China. America has repeatedly overestimated our ability to shape Chinese ambitions. But what we can do is ensure that we use the hard tools.
Wrap it up, sir. Next person.
To enforce what has to happen.
Yes, I want to make sure that the question of environmental justice gets more than a glancing blow in this debate, because for generations now in this country, toxic waste dumps, polluting factories have been located in or near communities of color over and over and over. And
oh my God, stop.
In the health of young African American babies, it's felt in the health of seniors, people with compromised immune systems. It's also felt economically. Who wants to move into an area where the air smells bad or you can't drink the water? I have a commitment of $1 trillion to repair the damage that this nation has permitted to inflict on communities of color for generations now. We have to own up to our responsibility. We cannot simply talk about climate change in big global terms. We need to talk about it in terms of rescuing the communities that have been damaged.
Senator Warren, thank you. Hallie?
President Biden, I want to ask you about something else that is important to people here. I want to ask you about Latinos owning 1 out of every 4 new small businesses in the United States. Many of them have benefited from President Trump's tax cuts, and they may be hesitant about new taxes or regulations. Will taxes on their small businesses go up under your administration?
No. Taxes on small business won't go up. Matter of fact, we're going to make sure there's more money available for small businesses in the Latino community and the black community to be able to get the capital to start businesses. At the Treasury Department, there's going to be a window available where we can significantly increase the amount of money available so people can borrow the money to get started. They have demonstrated they're incredibly successful. We should not be raising taxes on them. We should start rewarding work, not just wealth. That's why we have to change the tax code the way it is. That's why the wealthy start to pay their fair share, and that's why we have to focus on giving people the ability to garner wealth, generate wealth.